a lot of people who are going to be joining us. This is the middle of the work week, so you can imagine some people might be on their way, some might be in transit, some might be at one event or the other. But we are very definite, very sure, very positive that as we go along, a lot more people will join us because this is a very, very important meeting for us to have. Well, my bio is showing on the screen. I don't think it's gonna be very okay for me to start reading my own bio again. However, I'm guessing this will have been sent to everyone. And by way of a very quick introduction, I'm the editor of Environment Africa magazine, and also I'm also one of the people who have been involved with Center for 21st Century Systems, Center for 21st Century Issues in the last few years on several campaigns and projects they've been putting together, especially with regards to CSO processes, CSO involvement in the UNFCCC, and also educating media on UNFCCC processes, which has actually brought us to this level, to this point in time. Thank you once again, everyone, for joining us. And I hope I believe we are going to have a very enlightening session. Moving on, may I take this opportunity to introduce Mrs. Titi Akosa, the Executive Director, Center for 21st Century Issues, who is going to give us introductory remarks before we move on. Mrs. Titi, please. Hello, can you all hear me, please?
Yes, we can hear you.
Great. Normally, I think we should normally start with the national anthem, but as it is, I think we've taken quite a bit of time. Dami, would you do us the honors before Mrs. Titi comes on and gives us an introduction?
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Yeah, you are all welcome to this important training. And I want to thank my team and all those who are on this training this afternoon. We thank you for making out time to be one of our speakers, moderators, and so on. We really appreciate you because not many people have the time to do one thing or the other, but you have counted it as important to join us, and not also to join us, to share your knowledge and your expertise on the issue at hand. We really appreciate you. And for all our viewers, those who are already online, those who will join later, please, this is an important training. Asking question about you want to go to COP, you want to know what is happening, you want to do this, you want to do that. This is where you get all the important information. This training helps you to navigate the whole United Nations Framework Convention processes, even before you get there. So you have knowledge so that by the time you are going, you are not just going there to play or while away your time. You have a target to meet. So we always appreciate that when people are going for COP conferences, you plan yourself, you know when to get your hotel, you know how to register for it, you get yourself registered and you have the letter that will allow you into the space. Not only that, you have information about the different kinds of opportunities that you can get there. And then you map yourself and get yourself prepared for the kind of opportunities you want. So that by the time you get there, you are very targeted, you are very intentional, and you're able to maximize the opportunities and potentials in that space. So this afternoon, I want to appreciate all of us. And I want to say the Center for 21st Century Issues with all our partners, we are happy to have you here. And we're committed to ensure that we answer all your questions as much as possible. We support you in this process as much as possible all the time. Thank you. You are welcome. Please take your time to listen to the presentation. Ask important questions. Even you can send follow-up questions. We'll be ready to respond. Thank you very much and have a good program.
Thank you very much, Madam Titi. Thank you so very much for that introduction. Once again, like I'm going to reiterate this. If as we move along, as we listen to the speakers and comments and remarks, if you do have any of those, please put them on the chat box. One of the secretariat will be there to pick them out immediately. And please, if you do not have all your questions answered because we have a time limit for this, be rest assured that follow-up answers will be sent across. So please do not hesitate to put down your email addresses also, so that at every point in time, you can be gotten across to and you can receive feedbacks on every every clarification you require with regards to what's going to be discussed this afternoon. Once again, this whole, like Madam Titi has said, this is all about UNFCCC processes, governance structure, and understanding the impacts your presence at the UNFCCC can make for yourself, for your organization, and for your country. And basically, I'm going to start by just giving a little breakdown of what the UNFCCC is. I want to assume that we all know what the UNFCCC is, which is the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, which is an international treaty aimed at addressing climate change and its impacts. Basically, the whole purpose of the UNFCCC is to stabilize greenhouse gas concentrations in the atmosphere to prevent dangerous interference with the climate system. And this is majorly achieved through international cooperation and national actions to reduce emissions and adapt to climate impacts. Obviously, we all know about the NDC's nationally determined contributions. These are all country targets, that are being set up to address individual country emissions. And at the end of the day, the UNFCCC forms a forum where these countries come and present their targets, present what they've done over the last year, and also to negotiate on how to move forward with regards to climate interventions and every other issue pertaining to climate sustainability. I'm not going to speak too much about this because we have a very experienced speaker who is going to take us on understanding the UNFCCC, and that's in the person of Omar Anke-Saleh, who is the voluntary country mentor for the Africa Reality Project. He's also, forgive me, hello, can you all hear me? Because I seem to be losing.
We can hear you perfectly.
Okay, wonderful. So, Mr. Do I say Alhaji or Malam? Dr. Omar Saleh Anke is an enthusiastic professional dedicated to advancing environmental sustainability and social well-being through research, advocacy, and practical interventions. His diverse expertise and substantial contributions make him a valuable asset in the field of environmental management and climate change policy, which is extremely important for our discussions today. Omar Saleh Anke is an accomplished environmental and social safeguards expert with extensive experience in natural resources management, climate change policy analysis, and environmental impact assessment. He is currently serving as the Director of Environment and Climate Change at the Kano State Watershed and Climate Change Agency, and is a designated national focal point for the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. So this is basically he owns what we are going to be discussing today. He is a fellow of the Nigerian Environmental Society and the Occupational Safety and Health Association UK. He is also a member of the Association of Nigerian Geographers and a council member of the Institute of Environmental Practitioners. Like I said earlier, he is currently a volunteer country mentor for the Africa Climate Reality Project in Nigeria. Please welcome Mr. Dr. Omar Saleh Anke who is going to be taking us through the process of understanding the UNFCCC. Mr. Anke, please. You have the mic.
Oh, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir. We are all ready and eager to listen to you.
Who's going to share the screen? Or can I just go on? Good afternoon, everyone. Like you have said, I'm the errand boy here, and my name is Umar Saleh Anka from Kano State. I've been asked to just say a few words on the understanding of UNFCCC. And like you said, the UNFCCC is a crucial global agreement that provides framework for international cooperations on climate change, which makes it very important, especially today. It has evolved significantly since the establishment of the agreement, since the inception, establishing a framework for international cooperations on climate change. Of course, we need to give a short background of the history and background of the UNFCCC. UNFCCC, of course, United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, was adopted on May 9th, 1992. And with entry, it enters into force in March 1994. So about 2 years later, they started working with full force, with the primary goal of stabilizing greenhouse. Of course, primarily, this agreement was signed, it came into force just to stabilize greenhouse gas emission. So that's what makes it important. And there was an establishment, after the entry into force, they established an IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, was also established in 1988 to provide the scientific support to this initiative. So, so by history, they have key principles. The principles as which this UNFCCC is operating is the CBDR, which is common but differentiated responsibility. It was developed, expected to take an action with greater responsibility to their historical emission. Of course, since they are the major emitters, so the CBDR was also part of the agreement objectives. Then precautionary principles. After these common but differentiated responsibilities, there was a parties that should take proactive measure to anticipate, prevent, and minimize the causes and effects of climate change. So after identifying that the major polluters of the emission are the developed countries, so there are precautionary measures as one of the objective and the principle. Then sustainable development. The climate change policies should be integrated with national development programs to provide sustainable growth. Then there should be an equity, the right to sustainable development and the needs of the vulnerable countries to and communities are emphasized. So when you identify that the major countries, the major polluters are the developed countries, and these parties, they were asked to take proactive measures for sustainable development, and they identify that there should be an equity so that the communities that are affected, that are vulnerable, they should be given equal responsibility opportunities. Then in one of the other objectives of the, after the principles, we already know that there are principles, key principles that are the CBDR, the precautionary principle, the sustainable development, and the equity. So those are the key principles for the UN establishment of those agreements. Then objective. Basically, there are 3 objectives that was put in place. That is the mitigation, adaptation, and finance. Then when we talk about mitigation, I believe everyone knows that it's just about reducing the greenhouse gas emissions to slow down the global warming, which is practically now it's happening. If you look at what is happening in even in Nigeria, Taraba State that is known with water, Plateau State, Kogi are now experiencing drought spell. Yeah. In Kano here, it's in the city that we majorly see the rainfall. Outside in the outskirts, it's not there. So the mitigation is to slow down the global warming. And then second objective is on the adaptation, strengthening the capacity of countries to adapt to the impact of climate change. So this is the second objective, then financing. Of course, all this, the mitigation measures and the adaptation is centered towards the financing, mobilizing financial resources to support climate action in developing countries is one of the major objectives that UNFCCC was established. Well, after all this, there are key milestones. Processes. The most important one is the Kyoto Protocol, which is in 1997, which was established legally, binding emissions reduction targets for the developed countries. This is what brought about a very serious development. Then in 2007, about a decade ago, after the Kyoto Protocol, there was a Bali Road Map. The Bali Road Map is a 2-year process to finalize a binding agreement in Copenhagen, addressing issues such as mitigation, adaptation, and technology and finance again. Because when we talk about the mitigation measures and adaptation, the technology now came into force, then the financing. Am I audible? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Though you are having a little break, but we can hear you perfectly well now.
Okay, like I said, the key milestones and agreements within the UNFCCC processes, the major one are for like, okay, people are saying they wanted to join, but you're not admitting them. Okay, now the Copenhagen Accord in 2009 recognizes the need to limit global temperature increases to below 2 degrees Celsius and pledge financial support for developing countries. I think that's when the issue of the Copenhagen in 2009 bring about another dimension of the resource mobilization and setting targets to 2 degrees Celsius. Then Cancun Agreement. In 2010, they established the Green Climate Fund. GCF was established and set foundation for a global adaptation framework. So you can see that in this, the key processes, the achievements, we said the Kyoto Protocol, the Bali Roadmap, the Copenhagen, the Cancun Agreement. So these are what brought about issue of development in the space of UNFCCC. Then the Kyoto Protocol, which is the first one, is legally binding targets, establish legally binding targets on emission reduction targets to developed countries. So this is where we started seeing like setting up a standard. Then emission trading was allowed countries to trade emissions allowances to achieve their targets more cost effectively. Then clean development mechanism was also developed, all under the it enabled developed countries to invest in emission reduction projects in developing countries. So which is another milestone. Then joint implementation. The JI permitted developed countries to cooperate on emission reduction projects within their own region. So at least this is another development. So they can co-create and provide this agreement. Then the Paris Agreement, there comes the big one. In 2015, we started seeing the issue of NDCs, where the countries set their own targets. Because if you look at the first one, it was a joint regional target. Now, in 2015, countries can set their own targets for reducing emission and are required to report on their progress. So which means there's an M&E, even though you are allowed as a country to set up your target. I think before we went to Glasgow, Nigeria has already increased our targets. So I don't know what's going to happen now. Then the global temperature limit. Under the Paris Agreement, it was aimed to limit global warming to well below 2 degrees Celsius as against the first agreement. And this time around, the efforts to limit the temperature increased to 1.5 degrees Celsius. Then, under the Paris Agreement, there was a transparency framework, which established a framework for tracking, reporting on countries' progress. Well, they were asked to report, then in this one, there would be a tracker on the progress that is made towards the climate goals. Sorry. Sorry. Okay. Transparency is also very important in this regard. So it was considered as one of the major achievements of the Paris Agreement. Then the role of civil society in all this progress that was made. What are the role of civil society? What can we do to make sure that these agreements or the targets set? So, of course, as usual, advocacy, we raise awareness like what we're doing now to advocate for stronger climate policies and actions. Then, since the target was allowed to be set by a particular country, then we can monitor and report, because we need to be co-creating between government and civil society to make sure that we monitor governments and corporations to ensure accountability on the climate commitments. There could be a commitment by a country, but if there are no check and balances, you may end up seeing it being utilized. Then community engagement. We need to go down, engage with the local communities. We listen to them. Even if there's going to be a budget on environment or climate action, it should be people-centered budget. Then innovations, because in the Paris Agreement, the issue of technology in Kyoto Protocol started coming in place. So innovations and solutions. We should not be just a civil society where you just say a problem without proper setting up a solution. The CSOs develop and promote innovative solutions to address the issue of these emissions and climate challenges. So it's advisable that we should change our narrative of maybe pointing fingers. Then we sit down and bring out solutions to the problems so that we can work together and serve the countries, our respective countries. Then the importance of this continuous engagement. We emphasize that it's very important to see action and the impact. When you have a stronger climate policies, then it is expected that emission will be reduced and mitigated climate change. Then once you continue engagement with the government through co-creation, there will be an increased financial support for the developing countries. And then we expect that climate resilience and sustainable development will be improved, enhanced. Then under this continuous engagement with state and non-state actors, there would be an effective implementation of international agreements. Those agreements that we feel they are very important can only be effective if we continue engaging, especially the government, then we can monitor progress towards the global climate goals. When you set up a target, we expect that you choose to, of course, monitor, engage, constructive engagement, so that the governments of countries would provide a meaningful targets that will be beneficial to its citizens. Then I will not take much of the time because I have more knowledgeable people that can discuss more on this. In conclusion, we say that UNFCCC is a vital framework for global climate action. It provides a platform for countries to come together, share information, and work collaboratively to address the urgent challenge of climate change. By engaging actively in the UNFCCC processes, civil society especially will play a crucial role in ensuring that global response to climate change is effective, inclusive, and aligned with the national priorities. At this point, I want to say kudos to the organizers for bringing us together to just remind ourselves of the responsibilities that we should concentrate, look at the mitigation measures in order to have a strengthened capacity for us to adapt to the impacts of climate change, which is visible. And of course, like we always complain that environmental budgets used to be a bit low. These actions that are required to be implemented, we need to mobilize finance, especially now that the finance health issue is incorporated in COP28. So I think more funds need to be provided to support climate actions, especially in the developing countries where we are the most vulnerable. And it visibly the impact of climate change, the flooding and the dry spell, all at the same time, in the same country, and probably most especially in the same region. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity just to highlight on the processes of UNFCCC.
Well, thank you so very much, Dr. Omar. That was extremely enlightening. I'm pretty sure that almost every one of us who have been listening to you have gotten a little bit more enlightened about the UNFCCC processes. And a couple of things you mentioned. You did say that CSOs need to change the narrative and not just be, if I can use the local parlance, follow people. Meaning that as we go to the UNFCCC, we should look at identifying problems and not just identifying those problems, but providing and proffering solutions. And there's something else I also want to add, which you also mentioned. We should also advocate towards the implementation of those solutions. And it brings me to mind of the lobbies. You know, once we talk of advocating for positions and so on, traditionally, two critical sectors have always had the strongest lobbies, and those are the fossil fuel advocates and also the armaments advocates. So basically, what you're advocating for is for CSOs to actually start playing a much more integrated and impactful role in the UNFCCC process. Thank you so very much, Dr. Omar. And once again, if you are here on this platform and you do have questions, please put them on the chat box. Immediately after, we have the second speaker who is going to be talking to us about the UNFCCC governance structure. We are going to create an opportunity for some of these questions to be answered. So please do not hesitate to put your questions on the chat room. And now we are going to be talking about the UNFCCC governance structure. Basically, the governance structure of the UNFCCC is designed to oversee and facilitate international climate negotiations and actions. We have the Conference of the Parties, which is the supreme decision-making body. We have subsidiary bodies. We have the Secretariat, the Presidency, and ad hoc working groups and special mechanisms. I'm not going to be talking about this. The person who is going to be talking about this is a very experienced professional who has been in the sector for decades. And we are talking of Mrs. Comfort Adebisi Owolabi. She's going to be taking us through the UNFCCC governance structure. Hello, can I have everyone mute their mics so we do not have... Thank you very much. So as you can see on the screen, Mrs. Comfort Adebisi Owolabi is a Nigerian-born environment, climate change, and sustainable development consultant. She retired from the Federal Ministry of Environment, Department of Climate Change in 2012 as a director. She has capacity and competency acquired over the years through training, hands-on experience in specific areas of environmental management and sustainable development. These include environmental policy development and implementation, renewable energy and non-renewables, climate change mitigation and adaptation, solid waste management. I think I'm just going to read through that because there are a whole lot of competencies she has. You know, she has also been she has also contributed vigorously to the development of Nigeria's nationally determined contributions, especially with regards to the greenhouse gases. She's also been consistent with her passion for protecting this one planet from further degradation and destruction. She has continued to collaborate and network on climate change, environment, and sustainable development with a national focal point individuals, institutions, and some NGOs and conference of parties to UNFCCC COP15, which adopted the Paris Agreement 2015, among other sessions at the national and global levels. She contributed also to the training session of officers of the National Focal Point Nigeria in preparation for COP28 in Abuja, Nigeria, 2023. Mrs. Comfort Owolabi holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Zoology from the University of Ibadan, a Master of Science in Biology, Environmental Science from the American University, Washington. She also holds several technical certificates, achievements, and participation in specific areas of environmental management and climate change. She is a fellow of the Rockefeller Leadership for Environment and Development Fleet and a member of the Nigerian Environmental Society, among others. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mrs. Comfort Adebisi Owolabi, who is going to take us on the UNFCCC governance structure. Mrs. Owolabi, thank you so very much for your time and for your expertise. Please, you have the mic.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Thank you very much. I appreciate the Century for 21st. Sorry, just a minute. Thank you very much. I appreciate the Center for 21st. Hello, am I audible? Sorry. Hello.
Yes, ma'am, we can hear you.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. I'm delighted to be here. I appreciate. I can't take this for granted. I appreciate the Center for 21st Century Issues, C21st, that has convened this session in partnership with the Society for Planet and Prosperity and the Enviro News Development Network. It's so wonderful to have committed organization, CSOs, that realize the need to come together, to interact, to look at the various issues and build capacity so that Nigeria can be on a better position to make the most of sessions that are outside global sessions, as well as the issue of tackling the menace of climate change, a long-standing issue, national issue, in a way that will be much better than yesterday. Thank you very much once again. I'm trying to, do I have to share my screen, or the Secretariat is doing that?
Okay.
Okay.
You can share your screen.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. A lot already has been said about the UNFCCC, understanding the UNFCCC. And at this point, we want to look at the governance structure of the UNFCCC. Of course, it's good, it is pertinent to recognize that what we are doing today did not start just in 1992. We want to appreciate our forebears and others who had worked in the past. Over time, there were early concerns about the environment, which culminated in the very first global conference on the human environment held in Stockholm, Sweden. And it has been an evolutionary process. Stockholm 1972 declaration actually established specific principles for effective environmental management, effective global cooperation. And those principles are quite clear. The principles form the foundation for global environmental governance and also for sustainable development issues across this one planet that we all are trying to manage. I should also say that the Stockholm Conference, apart from making specific recommendations that were still applied even in 1992, between 91 and 92, when the Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee on Climate Change on the UNFCCC worked, all those principles and targets, all those recommendations were useful in the negotiation process. And of course, I should acknowledge the Brundtland Commission that came up with a report on our common future. But all this time, of course, IPCC, the United Nations General Assembly, of course, by 1988 took the decision to have a framework on climate change. And of course, this was implemented by the establishment of the INC, the Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee, that worked tirelessly. I should say then at this point that the national focal point is, of course, an essential component in terms of getting all this done. Well, a lot has been said already, and we appreciate the 1992 when the convention itself was signed, 154 countries, including Nigeria, just to show that Nigeria's commitment has been on all along. I must say that Nigeria was in 1972 at the Stockholm conference in Sweden, and I would say that interest had been shown. Of course, there is a lot to do, a lot of commitment in terms of action, matching our policies and our declarations, our pledges with commensurate action at all levels of the society. And we will acknowledge all the same that the global action, the global interactions have helped to build awareness, have helped to even evolve interest in civil society organizations and others. Because back in, say, in the 80s, I would say that we did not know as many organizations that showed interest, that were concerned in environment at the time. I can recall the Nigerian Conservation Foundation. More have evolved over time because of the awareness created through some of these interactions and the various outcomes and messages that have come. Of course, such messages include those through such organizations like United Nations Environment Programme. I should say that UNEP came as a result of the decisions and recommendations of Stockholm in 1972. It was the first environmental establishment the first United Nations organization that was established in Africa, and this was on environment. And UNEP was charged by its governing body to ensure the surveillance of the earth, and that has helped over time. The scientific studies, atmospheric assessments, the IPCC, Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, working hand in hand with UNEP and other bodies, the satellite image data and all that through the Landsat and other developed countries' efforts, I must say, have helped to come up with assessments over time. And by 1992, it was quite clear that there was a need. There was this rising global concentrations, rise in global concentrations of carbon dioxide and other GHGs, greenhouse gases, those gases that are the global warming gases, the gases that have global warming potentials, and these are not good for the climate system. So over time, there has been this, the beginnings, early beginnings of encouraging working together, because we have only one Earth and we cannot afford to go in silos. We needed to coordinate, harmonize our efforts, synergize, so that we can move in the same direction by the time, because if people are moving in different directions, at the end of the day, we will be harming ourselves. We want development with minimum destruction, development that is sustainable, that will take care of present generations without jeopardizing the chances of future generations in meeting their own needs. So at this point, of course, we have a lot has been said about the various aspects of the UNFCCC, and the objectives have been highlighted, that including sustainable development, international cooperation, coordination, and all that, the importance of protecting the climate system, and of course, guided by specific objectives and principles as provided by the convention and the rules of procedure. So at the governance structure of the UNFCCC, of course, comprises the Conference of Parties to the Convention, which is the supreme policy or decision-making body of the convention, the Conference of the Parties to the UNFCCC, to the convention. And that Conference of Parties, of course, it is at the highest, it is the supreme decision-making body. And we have, over time, as we have identified, when you have a convention, you don't have a protocol, there is no teeth to that convention. It was just appropriate for the global community to identify the need to have the protocol, so that there will be teeth, there will be specific targets. So it will not just be a gentleman agreement, but something you can hold people down to say, no, these are the targets, we must reduce our emissions by this percentage compared to the baseline values of 1990 levels, and so on. And so the Kyoto Protocol was adopted, as we have heard, and today we have 197 countries have ratified the convention, plus the EU, making 198 parties. And then we also have the Kyoto Protocol with 197. And the protocol, of course, today we have also moved. So it has been an evolutionary mechanism, because we want to move forward and we are re-strategizing over time. There has been a lot that has gone on from COP1 in Berlin to COP28 last year in Dubai, and looking forward to the next one. But then it should not be a matter of going for meetings and all that, but we should actually have concrete actions. There have been commitments made at the level of Conference of Parties by parties themselves to the convention. We'll see that the commitments have not quite matched the actions. And that is where developing countries, we as developing country party, and civil society organizations, all our stakeholders, we should be concerned. It is individual and collective responsibility, responsible care. This is in line with what we agreed to right from 72 Stockholm and through the Rio, and on and on and on and on at the various sessions of the Sustainable Development Triangle and the specific conventions, particularly the Climate Change Convention. So we have today the Conference of Parties to the Convention, to UNFCCC. There is also the Conference of Parties serving as meeting of parties to the Kyoto Protocol. And we also, and that oversees the implementation of the Kyoto Protocol that was agreed to by parties. And then we also have the third Conference of Parties, the Supreme decision-making body, as Conference of Parties serving as the meeting of parties to the Paris Agreement, the CMA. So we have the COP, we have the CMP, we have the CMA. So somebody will say, we want to make sure that all gaps are bridged, working together in synergy as Conference of Parties, focusing on each of the issues should help. And this, it is good that all of us get to know what is there so that when we get to a meeting, for instance, we'll not be confused. When we say, which one is Conference of Parties? What is happening? So these are the three governing bodies, but they are all at the level of the governing body with the Conference of the Parties to the Convention, the COP, the CMP, and the CMA. And they have a crucial role, decision-making, to do. Each of them have their bureau, and of course, the bureau assists. I should say the Conference of Parties, we have a president. For the Conference of Parties, we have the president is contributed by one of the regional blocks, regional groups. At the moment, it is the West WEOG, that is called Western Europe and other group that is there as president now. And the next president, of course, is expected from the African group next year. So we have the Conference of Parties, and then we have the Bureau. Bureau, you have 7 vice presidents. And of course, we have parties to the convention, national focal points, very important. And we have constituencies. We have the regional groups. And it is important to appreciate that civil society organizations are very important, even in this process of the cooperation, international cooperation, international environmental governance. The party to the convention has a lot of say, and the civil societies in each of the national focal point, in each of the national parties, each of the party member countries are very, very important. Right from the beginning, there was the need, the appreciation of the role of community organizations, civil societies, non-governmental organizations, because there is need for ownership for any policy or any decision. So your role is very important. The role of the civil society, organization, and individuals are very, very important. Again, there is also in international law, the supremacy of national laws. So the Conference of Parties, before the decision is taken, there is a process, and we will go down the line. Now, from the highest making body, we have the 2 permanent subsidiary bodies that support the Conference of Parties in its work. We have the subsidiary body for scientific and technological advice. Of course, from the name, it provides scientific, technical, and methodological advice based on sound science, to the Conference of Parties. It reports to the Conference of Parties. Then we also have another permanent body called the subsidiary body for implementation. Whatever decisions are taken must be implemented. So it's not for joke, it is for action, it is for making a change for the better for both present and future generations. So there is the SBI, subsidiary body for implementation, from policy to action, from science to action for reality. This body reviews and assesses the implementation of the convention. And apart from that, the Conference of Parties has the powers to identify or to establish other groups, ad hoc working groups, constituted bodies, and other bodies based on need. At the moment, we have ad hoc working groups. Different ad hoc working groups had been established over the years. Some of them had completed their work, and others have also been established. So under the ad hoc working groups, we have ad hoc working group on adaptation, on mitigation, so there are specific ad hoc working groups with specific assignments, and these are also listed. And they support the work of the Conference of Parties, and they report to the appropriate subsidiary bodies, and also report to the Conference of Parties under the expected line hierarchy. Ad hoc working group for example, we have the ad hoc working group for further commitments for Annex 1 parties under the Kyoto Protocol, AWGKP, and it was established to explore further commitments for Annex 1 countries under the Kyoto Protocol. And of course, the focus was on emission reduction, land use flexibility mechanisms, and of course, we had others, ad hoc working group on the Durban platform. Of course, it completed its work to develop a new global climate agreement applicable to all parties. I should say, as you will identify, that ad hoc working group on Durban platform completed its action by the time the Paris Agreement was adopted in 2015 in Paris. And there are others. And of course, there are other bodies like the Technology Executive Committee, which is to promote the development and transfer of climate-friendly technologies. There is also the Climate Technology Center and Network. So there are different bodies, and one should not get confused, but that when one sees all these ones on the floor of the COP, of the Conference of Parties, so that one can understudy them more. The UNFCCC website is available on details and updates on each of their actions and on each of their proposals, so that we can make inputs on draft decisions and things like that at the right time. There is, of course, the Green Climate Fund, the GCF, to support developing countries in reducing greenhouse gas emissions and adapting to climate change. We have the financing, mitigation and adaptation programs and projects and policies. Of course, the Global Environment Facility that many of us will know about over time, it started from the pilot phase, and over time, it has some conditionalities at a point, and developing countries were not happy about that. Over time, they are trying to make things, they are trying to improve on their mechanism so that it will make it easier based on the needs identified by the developing countries and other stakeholders. Global Environment Facility, of course, is one of the financial mechanisms to support projects and programs addressing global environmental issues, including climate change. I should say biodiversity and international waters are also there, and of course, ozone layer depletion. So these are areas that we need to be aware of so that we can maximize the benefits of available facilities for our developing world. I must say at this point that as part of the governance structure of the UNFCCC, there are regional groups, and the method, the process of getting decisions made is by negotiation, is by lobbying, okay? Consensus, and at the end of the day, we need consensus. UN works with consensus. When there is no consensus, effort is made to exhaust all possible measures to ensure that there is consensus so that everybody can work as one. But where it is impossible, then a vote the issue can be put to vote. And of course, it is important that our CSOs and all who will be interacting at this point, particularly the civil society organizations, you have a very special role. In fact, the Blueprint's agenda for sustainable development, including climate change, mitigation, and adaptation, that was adopted in Rio de Janeiro, the Art Summit in Rio in 1992, has a section specifically for participation of major groups including CSO in particular. And it is important that since it is international cooperation, it is global diplomacy, it is important to arm ourselves with negotiating skills. For negotiation, it is certainly important to be aware, a knowledge and understanding of the issues. A knowledge and understanding of our national priorities are very important. And it is important to work closely to engage with others. I should say at this point that the regional groups are there. For Nigeria, for instance, we are in the developing country group, which is called the G77 plus China group. And we are also member of the African group. It is important that all of us, the CSOs, get to know this, and I know you do, and we want to intensify efforts to keep abreast of the goings on at these levels, so that in good time we can make our contributions. In good time we can take necessary action to ensure that we maximize benefits for our country to move forward, even in this battle of tackling global warming, this battle of tackling climate change, the climate change menace. So the G77 and China, they meet regularly during sessions, during the Conference of Parties meetings. So it is important to check the agenda and ensure that we go early for meetings, listen and understand, make our research, arm ourselves with the various legal instruments from the convention to the protocol, have our own pencil and pen and all that, and make our notes in terms of, and then have access the available documents. There is the secretariat, very important part of the governing structure. The secretariat of the convention provides and supports all the processes of the Conference of Parties. It supports the COP, the Bureau, it supports the subsidiary bodies, it supports the parties to ensure that the various documents are made available. It coordinates implementation of the activities at various levels. It manages the day-to-day operations and the logistics of the convention. So we can always count on the secretariat, and if there is any issue, we can always make sure that we keep track and encourage and engage so that we can have the best. So the UNFCCC website is available and it has updates. It's a living platform that we should continue to familiarize ourselves with and build knowledge, skills. The secretariat is very important. And then we have the national focal points. The national focal points, they are the representatives of the respective governments that are parties to the convention. Nigeria, of course, is a party to the convention and to the protocol, as well as the Paris Agreement. So in Nigeria, we have the designated national focal point, which is the National Council on Climate Change and in Nigeria. So there is the designated national focal point, and these focal points are very important in terms of getting things done. Every other sector, everyone needs to work together. The focal point cannot work alone. The focal point has specific responsibilities to coordinate actions at the national level, to also provide the secretariat at the national secretariat at the national level, and also be on ground for negotiations, so that other sectors of the various constituencies, whether the CSOs, the industry sector, transport sector, energy sector, everyone can have a place, a place to interact. The national focal points, the roles, the responsibilities include to make provision, to coordinate, to involve, to engage all stakeholders in the nation, to ensure early appreciation, early access to the various draft decisions, to initiate along with the stakeholders through the participatory approach. I should say that over time, Nigeria has adopted the participatory approach from a very long time. As at 1989, when the National Policy on Environment was established, it was through the participatory approach of stakeholders, a broad range of all stakeholders. At that time, we may say we didn't have such facilities as internet technology as this advanced or at all, I should say, but now it is even getting better. So we should not have any excuse in terms of our interactions and collaboration. We should feel free to go, to interact with the national focal point so that we can have synergy, cooperation, because no sector is an island. Even this planet we are trying to manage, we all know that it is a global common, and that's why we need to cooperate. So they say charity begins at home. Let us begin at home, and as we have the conveners of this meeting today have done, bringing people together. I appreciate that the convener also are in touch and in collaboration with the national focal point for Nigeria. So the role of, and we need to continue to support the national focal point as they try to do their best, intensify efforts to discharge their responsibilities in coordination, in capacity building, in implementation of decisions of previous COPs and other decisions that are taken, in providing negotiation platforms for views of stakeholders, and also in ensuring that Nigeria effectively participates even at the global forums, in the negotiating committees, effective participation. So these are the roles of the various components of the governing structure of the UNFCCC. And it is important, of course, to appreciate the previous decisions, to keep track of decisions that are taken and see how well we are doing. Like in the COP28 major decisions that were taken, we want to take note of them and see how well are we doing. The Paris Agreement is interested in transparency, is interested in keeping track of implementation, is interested in monitoring, reporting, and verification. All these, the national focal point in Nigeria has been intensifying efforts to involve stakeholders, and it's good also that the long-term strategy for low emissions, Nigeria has been able to come up with it through the stakeholder approach, and including the academia, the CSOs and all, with the national focal point, designated national focal point, coordinating, being at the center and involving all relevant bodies, relevant stakeholders. And one will appreciate all the efforts of the various stakeholders. One will want to appreciate, acknowledge, and also to encourage each of us in all our sectors to continue to intensify it. We have come a long way, but there's much more to be done. The scenario, the scientific studies, what we are hearing, we see that there is a long way to go. So the various areas of our interest, the CSOs already know, and we should continue to intensify efforts. The developing countries are the ones, we need all the support. And I should say, we see the various issues of the previous decisions, and then the issues that need to be followed up on. I should say that I'm aware that the national focal point has taken measures to inform and try to follow up on a number of these issues. The issue of global stock take, of course, the taking stock of the earth. This idea came from Stockholm and it has continued through Rio and so on. And today we want to make sure we are keeping track of what we are doing at all levels of society. At the national level, how well are we doing? In our various states, in our communities, CSOs have a lot to do because you are part of the national, group, Nigeria, the national group. And you are very important because the ownership is important for the communities, the local communities, the vulnerables. And we want to build, the CSOs want to continue to build capacity for themselves, for each CSOs continue to build capacities, individual and collective, as well as capacities of the communities. And awareness creation is all part of it, and so on. Well, CSOs, we want to advocate for ambitious plans. We want to seek for support. We want to seek for more things, to ensure we are expected to decarbonize. We need all the strength, transfer of technology, all those things, capacity building, issues of loss and damage. We need to keep track of each of these issues as they come up at the global community. Before then, we should prepare. Before then, we should access the website and make sure that we can strategize, work together, work in synergy with the national focal points, and then move as unity, as one. As we move on to the session, the COP29, we should keep focus. We should familiarize ourselves with what is expected. It's very important. If we fail to prepare, we prepare to fail. But if we prepare, we can maximize the benefit so that when the team gets to the site, it's easy to make sure that you continue the communication, the engagement, the negotiation with effective skills, negotiation skills. Of course, we want to remember diplomacy, respect. We want to remember that your national positions, your own interests are very important. You protect them, and we'll be wise about how we negotiate so that we can reach compromise positions that will help move us forward in our adaptation efforts and mitigation efforts, our efforts to get back all those things that have been lost and damaged, and other aspects in terms of education, building our capacities, transfer of technology. Of course, at the end of the day, equity is all part of the whole game from the beginning, and it should not change at this time. And of course, looking forward to COP29, we remember that the theme, of course, is advancing global climate goals, strengthening commitments and action at COP29. Okay, this is the focus, and we keep focused. As we are thinking through, we are also coming with inspiration and innovations so that by the time and strategizing right from here and keeping abreast of the goings on the website and strategizing on how to get the best for each of the areas that are to be tabled and adapt issues so that altogether we can be limiting global warming, having strengthened the capacity of Nigeria and other developing countries on the various the relevant regional groups, whether it's Africa, but the G77 and China, very, very big block and very important. We must not miss the meetings. We should not go late to meetings. We should take it as as if our life depends on it, which is really true, because when it gets better for the global environment, when climate change issues are addressed, we are helping ourselves. We are helping the whole world. We are helping generations yet unborn. So I want to congratulate the conveners again. I appreciate you. And I want to congratulate the CSO online and those who have committed themselves, even to moving things forward. I want to congratulate those who are committed to match their words with actions right from here and build their capacity much more, intensify effort the more, and keep focused so that indeed, as Nigeria participates with others, we would have been much prepared and getting there to bring things that will strengthen our capacities the more and catapult us forward, even in this march to address this national and global menace of climate change. I thank you very much. Thank you so much.
President, we are waiting for you right here.
Well, thank you so very much, Mrs. Comfort Adebisi-Owolabi. That was extremely insightful. I am very sure I, in particular, have been seriously enlightened about the governance structure, about what CSOs need to take into consideration going to the COP. So many of us on this platform have been to the COP, while a few of us haven't also. But it gives us, your presentation gives us an insight into all that needs to be taken into consideration, what we need to do, how we need to go about what we need to do, and how we actually also need to deepen our impact from participation at the COP. Thank you so very much once again, Mrs. Comfort Owolabi. That was extremely enlightening. And I want to thank both you and Dr. Omar for keeping to time. This gives us a little bit of leverage to actually ask our participants if they have any questions. Please, if you do have any questions, please just indicate by tapping on raising your hand. We have just 5 to 10 minutes for questions. And this is the time for you to ask whatever questions you need to ask. If you can't take any of the questions after the time has expired, we'll have to do a feedback, a response, and revert back to you after this time. However, the floor is open right now. If you do have a question, please raise your hand. I will call on you immediately. Are there any questions from anybody? Okay, while we are waiting for questions to come in, I'm seeing quite a lot of people who are congratulating our speakers for insightful presentations. And yes, the recording will also be shared. I can, on behalf of the organizers, confirm that the recording will be shared for those of us who came in late. And also, if you have a moment, there's a Google form. There's a link for a Google form that has been placed on the chat box. Please make sure you fill in your details to ensure that you are captured as having attended this training workshop. While I'm waiting for any questions, I'm going to call on Ms. Titi Akosa to just do a general wrap-up of what the two speakers have discussed, and also to give an insight into this particular training and why it's extremely important, given her experience with regards to CSO's involvement in the COP, and also how the NDCs are impacting on impacting on Nigeria, on CSO's actions and activities, and how we can take advantage of all this. Ms. Titi Akosa, please.
Hello, well, Sam, what was the question? What do you want me to respond to?
No, there was no question, actually. I'm actually asking you to do just a general overview of CSO's intervention at the COP and how this whole program...
I think there's going to be a session on that. We have carefully articulated the training module for this particular initiative. So we have a session on CSO's work. But nevertheless, I could just share a few things. We know CSO makes intervention at the level of the UNFCCC when there is a negotiation. So there is always a space, and we know that CSOs are divided into about 9 constituencies. Somebody else is coming to take that area. So as the CSO, you will look at where you fall in. There is women gender constituency. There is the labor union, there is the research constituency, there is this farmers group, which is another constituency, and I think there is another one, about 9 of them, really. And through those constituency, we make interventions when the negotiations are on critical issues that concern the people. So we try to bring the perspective of the people onto the table. So that's the way civil society really intervenes. And when we are not happy, we go take to the streets and we do our own advocacy and carry placards until they see us. So that's the bit I can tell you, but the session, please don't miss the next session. I think it's next week. That we'll get to the time when we are going to talk comprehensively about CSOs, and how CSOs can get accredited to the UNFCCC. So if your organization is not yet accredited, you have opportunity to listen to how to make sure that you are accredited, how you can also accredit other people under your organization and take them to COP meetings. Thank you very much. So I think there are people who have questions who are raising up their hands.
Yes, there are. Thank you so very much for that, Mr. Kosa. The first question, the first person whose hand is raised is, I don't know if this is a Miss or a Mr. Olaoluwa Yimika. You have the mic. Please ask your question. Mr. Olaoluwa Yimika. I don't know if it's a male or a female, but please, your hand is raised. Ask your question, please. Okay. He seems not to, or he or she seems not to. Okay. I do see that there are 1 or 2 questions from the chat box. Let me ask that. Okay, we have from Yaha Global Initiative for SDGs. Says we have developed a sustainable agricultural concept using an adaptation plant called Stevia, and would like to know how we can get global collaboration and partnership on it. I guess this is one of those questions that Ms. Titi, would you want to have a stab at this?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, please.
Let the panelists, those who spoke, respond.
Sorry about
There's a question in the chat box.
Hello.
Yes, please.
Okay,
There's
good.
a question in the chat box.
There's a okay. So excuse me. Let me just keep carry on with this. To the Mrs. Comfort, Mr. Omar, there's a question that has been asked by and the question is this. No, the question is I think I asked that earlier on, but let me repeat that because we have from Yaha Global Initiative for SDGs. We have developed a sustainable agricultural concept using an adaptation plant called Stevia, and we would like to know how we can get global collaboration and partnership on it. Would any one of you like to answer to this?
May I just make an attempt? I want to ask another question. Is this initiative, is a national focal point, the designated national focal points aware? Is there a way you can discuss it with the national, because the focal point is organized in a way to be able to assist the respective sectors based on their responsibility, since we are all working together to make sure that we minimize greenhouse gas emissions in each of the sectors that our nationally determined contributions, NDCs, have already covered. So I would personally encourage that you probably don't need to keep the whole of it to yourself. Somehow it's good to approach the designated national focal points and, ask on the process to get, to do this. And of course, by the time you have started, charity begins at home. You'll be able to strategize by the time, in terms of looking out, that type of thing. So I would suggest that the way to start probably, it would be a good idea. Why not talk to the, to the national focal points, the designated national focal points, get ideas. It's like engaging so that you can strategize better as you now look outwards by the time you are done in terms of, things that are already provided to support your initiative. Thank you.
Thank you so very much for that. Can I put a clarification here, please? Most of the questions, we are requesting for questions pertaining to the COP. If there are any other questions that have come out from this that you need responses to, please, the speakers and the Center for 21st Century Issues will try and ensure that answers get to you. However, the questions we shall be taking right now are questions pertaining to the COP and also to this current training that just occurred. Thank you very much. So we have another question again from Godwin Smith. How can CSOs get funding to attend COP? Dr. Umar, do you want to attempt that, please? Is Dr. Umar still with us? It appears Dr. Umar is no longer with us. I'm not so certain of that. Mrs. Comfort, do you want to attempt that?
Now the question is, how can you get support to attend?
To attend COP, yes, ma'am.
COP, yeah. I appreciate that your involvement in the work during the session, before the COP comes, kind of opens avenues for you to where possible. Sometimes you just find that people who are in a particular sector, they want to assist one way or the other. You may get information also from some of the people you've been engaging with as non-governmental organizations and CSOs. There are also websites where you can, I believe you can search, and consider that. I would want to still refer you to the national focal points in case they can assist in this area. But I know that there are some accredited NGOs that you can ask to see how possibilities of funding as well. I know it's not as if it's so easy to get funding, especially these days, but if there are organizations that need your expertise or one thing or the other, it helps to increase the chances of being supported for specific, not just to go for going sake, but going to be of added value in one way or the other. I thank you. Hello? Hello?
Hello.
Oh,
Hello.
sorry. Oh,
I think the moderator is having issues with network.
sorry.
So
Thank you.
But maybe you can also take, I think there are some other questions in the box. Someone is asking what's the membership requirements for UNFCCC? And someone says, I'm from Liberia, how can I get support for COP? I think she has addressed that. Maybe you should, your national focal point in your country.
Yes, they should refer to their national focal point. And there are other NGOs that are accredited. Yeah, yes, ma'am. Okay, sorry, the previous question is what?
Someone is asking that what's the membership requirements for UNFCCC?
Okay, please,
for
membership. Yeah.
How can we get accredited organizations like the UNFCCC to assist other organizations for registration with UNFCCC?
The place to start is actually your national designated national focal points. Those are the people recognized in terms of the parties to the convention, and they are the ones who coordinate the participation of the respective countries. So there is no two-way, there is this coordination. So as an NGO, CSO, it is important to work with them, to go to them early so that indicate your interest, and they will tell you whatever you need to do in terms of getting on the team to go as Nigeria, as your country, whether it's Liberia, the place to, so that there's a coordinated approach, coordinated effort. That is all. It's a global common, it's a global system we are working with. So we cannot afford to go as, just scatter ourselves. We can coordinate ourselves right from our homes at Jerusalem, or charity begins at home. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Mrs. Owolabi. My apologies, I'm having some network interference where I am. However, I guess we've questions answered. Hello, can you all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, wonderful. We have most of the questions answered. However, for those who still have concerns, please put your questions on the chat box. The Center for 21st Century will try and ensure that back to the speakers, and they can answer all these questions, maybe as prepared as an introduction to the next session. And the next session, we are going to be talking about, like Madam Steve has said, we are going to be moving further and talking about more of CSO's participation at the COP, and how we can all ensure we make impact through that participation. At least I do not know, is there who has Hello, I want to thank everyone here. I want to call on Mr. Michael Simire. Mr. Michael Simire, are you on this call with us, please?
Hello.
Okay, wonderful. Mr. Michael Simire is the editor of Enviro News, and he's also the founder of Enviro News Development Network, one of the key hosts of this training session. I would like you to give us a wrap up and a vote of thanks for this session, sir.
Okay. Hello, everybody. I think we've had a very rewarding and enlightening session today, whereby the speaker took us through on the workings of the UNFCCC and the dynamics of the COP as well, because they're interwoven. And I want to believe that we were able to gain a lot today. Definitely, we're going to continue with this session, this enlightening and engaging session. But we're running up today, and I want to thank you for making out time from your very busy schedules to join us today. We thank you for everything you've done, for all your patience today, despite the challenges that we're having with the network. And we hope that you would be available to join us in subsequent sessions. Thank you.
Well, thank you so very much, Mr. Simire. Before we close up this session, I want to reiterate to everyone that this training session and this project has been brought to us by the trio of Center for 21st Century Issues, Society for Planet and Prosperity, and the Enviro News Development Network. They are the ones who are championing this campaign to ensure that CSO's intervention at the COPs remain impactful, bring about a change narrative, and ensure a continuous intervention, positive intervention for CSOs in Nigeria and also for Nigeria itself. Thank you so very much. And I look forward to us coming back here on this platform the next time we are having another session. And I'm sure that it will be much more engaging and much more interactive than this. Have a good evening. Have a good evening, everybody. Bye for now.